The Washington Times is reporting that feminism may be dead.
And to teach students that just because something is done by males, that automatically means it's sexist, that's an unsound argument.
First of all, they got their amendment passed in 1920. Why are they still bitching about female rights?
Those opportunities were always out there for women if they wanted them.
After decades and decades and decades of feminists burning their bras, saying, make more money than men, do this, run over men, have sex like a man, tell your man what to do, don't let them open the door.
James, when did this war on men begin?
I'm not a feminist. I hail men. I love men. I celebrate American male culture.
It is negative associations people carry regarding feminism that causes Americans to shy away from the label. People twice as likely to consider calling somebody a feminist to be an insult, that's 23%, rather than a compliment, 12%. And I'm still going to chalk that up as a success.
You often hear feminism referred to as the other F word. It's easier for some people to say the word fuck than it is for them to say feminist. These are the people who say that they believe in equality, that they want to see more sisterhood, and that the double standards society holds people to are ridiculous. But no, I'm not a feminist. Now labels. We can debate about labels. Far be it from me to force the label of feminism on anyone. The problem comes in when people whose core principles align with those of feminism say that they can't possibly be feminists because they love men, or they are men, or they're not sexist, or feminism isn't necessary. When you rob a movement of its meaning and misrepresent its values, that's when we have a problem. Let me throw a metaphor at you. I'm sure we've all heard the story of the boiling frog. They say that if you stick a frog in a pot of boiling water, it'll immediately jump out. However, if you stick a frog in a pot of cool water and then gradually heat it up, the frog will stay in the water until it dies. Now, depending upon your definition of gradually, Google says that this story isn't true. But as a metaphor for people, it applies to everyone. Everyone is conditioned by their environment, for better and for worse. No one is a blank slate. We may have started out that way, but our environments, our families, our friends, and our cultures shape who we are and what we believe. The mainstream culture in the United States, for example, tells us that we live in a post-sexist world. We've got 99 problems, but misogyny ain't one. If you ask Google, our shared consciousness, what feminism is, more often than not, you're going to come across things like feminism is stupid, feminism is wrong, feminism is sexist, terrorism, a war against boys, unnecessary, a joke, a hate movement, and bullshit. And hell, if I was going off of how mass media talks about, portrays, and denounces feminism, then I would hate it too. Except it's none of those things. Feminism, as defined by the dictionary, is a lot of things, but they're all pretty much the same. The theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes, an organized effort to give women the same economic, social, and political rights as men, and the advocacy of women's rights on the grounds of economic, social, and political equality to men. Sounds good to me. Feminism is at its heart about equality. For everyone. But it's hard to believe that when the ones shouting the loudest are the ones telling you that feminists just want to see the world burn, one bra at a time. Real talk? Bras are expensive, and if I wanted to burn them, I would have just lit my money on fire. But arguably, it's partly our fault. So much of feminist theory is discussed in the classroom and written by academics for academics. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that a lot of the time, feminism speaks to feminism. Which isn't to say there aren't a lot of groups invested in seeing feminism fail. But it doesn't help to talk about things like heteronormativity and cissexism if nobody knows what the hell that means. If people aren't exposed to that language, even if they see these concepts played out in their everyday lives, it doesn't really matter what you're saying if no one can understand you. Now, there's definitely feminist thought and discussion in more than just the universities. But unfortunately, that work can be undervalued because it's not written in the elevated language of academia. By centering true knowledge in academic journals and universities, and by developing a language that is inaccessible to people who don't have a background in something like postmodern constructivist thinking, you're preventing that knowledge from being shared beyond those who can already afford access to it. No wonder there's so much misinformation out there. And maybe that's necessary in something like astrophysics, where discussing astrophysics would require a background in astrophysics. But feminism is also political. Feminism is about lived experiences, and feminism is something that should be combined with action. If you recognize injustice, the next logical step would be to go about trying to fix it. And we can't fix it if no one can understand what we're talking about. It just creates a divide between groups who are talking about the same issues, but maybe just in different ways. Knowledge is the power to take action, and everyone should have access to this knowledge, which is where the Unlearning Project comes in. There are a lot of misconceptions about what feminism is and what feminism isn't, what its purpose was in the past, and what its purpose is today and in the future. The mainstream culture would have you believe that feminists are out to destroy the world. I'd like to start a different conversation, one where together we might begin the process of unlearning our ingrained prejudices and taking a step towards understanding, an understanding that can be put into action, and action that can pave the way for a better world. So let's begin.